Alright guys and girls, this is Jerningam here, ladies and gentlemen. Some parts of the UK are struggling for fuel, like London and the South East suffer crisis fuel shortages. Will this happen with the rest of the UK, Northern Ireland, Scotland and Wales? Let's see the video. Tell me what you guys and girls and ladies and gentlemen think. Will it get better or will it get worse?
Last minute training at Buncefield Oil Depot. These armed forces personnel will deliver fuel from Monday, the latest attempt by the government to ease a shortage of drivers that's still leaving forecourts empty.
What we've seen in the last few days is trouble in terms of getting that fuel to the petrol forecourts. I think in most parts of the country it is certainly seeing signs of stabilisation, but I think it's also right as a precaution that the government has asked the military to help.
As well as drafting in the military, the government has sent out nearly 1 million letters to try and lure HGV drivers back into the industry. In a twist, that includes many German nationals in the UK, whose licence happens to allow them to drive lorries. Software engineer Chris, who's never driven an HGV, doesn't feel ready to help.
I think it's almost like a desperation, which is a shame, but my answer would be thank you very much for inviting me, but I'm not interested at this stage. It's got a funny side to it as well, because as I said, I've never driven an HGV before.
Across the UK, petrol stations are still struggling, but a north-south divide is emerging. The Petrol Retailers Association says fuel availability is improving in the Midlands, the North and Scotland, but is getting worse in London and the South East.
This petrol station in London had a tanker deliver fuel just 10 minutes ago, and already the queues are starting to form. It is a picture we're seeing at forecourts across London and the South East, where they're still really struggling to get deliveries.
It's really bad. I managed to fill up on Sunday, and this is the next time I'm filling up. So I've got through 6 days, but I haven't been able to go to all the jobs that I need to go to.
You've lost work, isn't it?
Yeah, I've lost work, yeah.
I waited in the BP up the road
American woman there
for like half an hour, and then I got there and it was only diesel. So then I've got 3 kids
in
the
London.
car. So then I came and waited in this one for another half an hour.
Government bringing in the army from Monday.
Yeah, I think that's a very good solution, because we need help. There are a lot of people here who need to go to work. There's no fuel.
Thousands of temporary visas are being
Right,
offered to food and
let's put
poultry
the next one
drivers
video on
in
now.
the lead up to Christmas. But they can't start till the end of October. Until then, it'll be down to around 100 military drivers to help keep fuel in people's tanks. Dan Whitehead, Sky News.
That's the next one. Let's rewind it. One would say to me, "No, there's adverts, man." Bloody adverts drives it must bend.
They can't start till the end.
Next one. You see some drivers continue waiting for hours for fuel.
Gearing up for a weekend of excursions. London and Torquay among day trip destinations for Applegate's coaches in Gloucestershire. They've just about got enough fuel, but the crisis means they're out of pocket.
We quoted for work, 12 months, six months ago, even a week ago, at a fuel rate that we thought we were going to get, and it's gone up by about 20-25%. So we're running at a loss, really.
It's more than a week since these supply problems started, and there are still issues. These were the queues in Stanmore in London just yesterday. The Petrol Retailers Association, which represents around 65% of UK forecourts, says more than a quarter of stations are still dry. It adds that 27% of forecourts only have one type of fuel in stock. And they say it's independent filling stations that are still not getting enough deliveries.
As we go into the second weekend of this crisis, it is a real mixed picture. Yes, you can find fuel, but in many cases it's not easy, and it's continuing to have a real impact on people's daily lives.
If you find fuel without visiting 6 or 7 garages, then you're very lucky.
For contractor Lee Henderson, it could be a weekend of driving around the forecourts.
drives me totally nuts because you try to plan your work. I've got to work tomorrow. There's probably 30 miles left in my tank. I live in Stroud. I've got to drive to Bristol, and obviously I'm constantly driving all the time around Bristol trying to find work and do jobs, and it is a total nightmare.
Any improvement in supply is slow, and fuel deliveries in some parts of the country are still sporadic.
Well, it's peaks and troughs. One day you're flat out and you'll be taking 3 times as much as you normally do. The next day you run out of fuel and you're sitting there looking silly at each other. And things like sandwiches and food, it just doesn't get sold because nobody comes in.
Many, including the government, had hoped this issue would have eased on its own. It hasn't, and this weekend there is still.
Go to the next one. I haven't seen this one, haven't we?
Last minute trading at Buncefield.
I was going to see if there's any more we've missed out on, or we've actually need to put onto the YouTube. Let's have a look. I'll probably end this video. Thank you for joining me, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.